Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we have the latest from the live radar. One of the latest UKV have the precipitation and the temperature over the next 5 days, as we are going to see a bit of a southeast-northwest split over the coming days, as we are going to see pretty dry conditions in the south and the east, and it might not be too bad in terms of temperatures, maybe even touching 20 degrees at times, but it is going to be much cooler and a lot more unsettled in the north and the west, where we could see lots of areas of both persistent and heavy rain as we see the jet stream trying to push in. As I said, it's a big battle between the high that we've had a lot over the past week that is slowly getting nudged away, but battle between that and the jet stream that is powering up inevitably as we head deeper into autumn. As we progress into the longer term, it does look like eventually the low pressure could win out, at least for a time, but we are still seeing quite a big split within the models, as some runs like the GFS eventually bring the high pressure back. Other runs like the GEM have the jet stream sinking southwards, allowing low pressure to push in for all. So not looking at anything too unusual for the time of year, but it's whether we see a bit of an autumnal high starting to develop, or at least continuing its dominance from what we've had at the moment, or whether we do see that full autumnal Atlantic flow pushing in that we generally do see for quite a big period of the autumn. It's the normal kind of step change that a lot of people notice when we start going from more sunny, dry conditions throughout the summer to wet and windy. Could that be coming? Definitely the GM and other runs suggest that today. So do remember, if you enjoy the videos, which do like and subscribe. Now, to start on the live radar, not too much going on through Sunday afternoon. That area of rain that did give slow-moving and significant rainfall in the north and the west throughout Saturday is now clearing out into the North Sea, and a few remnants on the southern edge of that weather front clearing eastern England at the moment. So here, just a bit of thick cloud and a light drizzle, not really expecting much in the way of proper rain. A few showers elsewhere, but generally speaking, again, nothing too crazy. It's a pretty dry day, pretty pleasant with the high pressure rebuilding in. You see that where that weather front is, temperatures are a little bit cooler, but either side of it, temperatures up towards the mid to high teens today. So getting close to average, but probably still feeling a bit chilly in most areas, as we have had relatively cool air involved at the moment. But we should be trending back closer to average into this new working week, as we do start to see more of a southwesterly wind pushing in. But of course, if the jet stream sinks southwards, which some runs do predict for the end of this week, then we could actually see cooler conditions returning with more of a northwesterly flow trying to push in. Now, if you look at the latest UKV, you can see all of that rain clearing away through the rest of today, and by this evening we are into sunnier, brighter and drier conditions. But as we progress into the Monday, already starting to see the rain returning for the north and the west, and if we just go through this quite quickly, you'll be able to see that the rain just stays in the north and the west. Now, it pushes in initially during Monday, nothing crazy, kind of clipping those areas of rain. The south, still cloudy, but not too bad. And then we start to see some more persistent, heavier batches of rain arriving during Tuesday evening and really dominating those northern and western areas. But you see, throughout the week, they don't really make any progress southwards or eastwards. Yes, they could try and nudge their way in, but they're really coming up against strong resistance from the higher pressure. And by the end of the week, has made as much progress down towards perhaps parts of Wales, up towards northeastern England, not really getting much further southwards than that. So yeah, definitely a big split coming up this week. If you are in the north and the west, could be pretty miserable indeed. But if you are further southwards and eastwards, then yes, there'll be plenty of cloud and perhaps a bit of drizzle as the remnants of these weather fronts sweep through. But really not expecting much at all. Fairly mundane week to come. Now, the reason for this, if we look at the mean sea level pressure, is low pressure to our northwest, high pressure to our southeast, strong southwesterly winds. So again, the upper air temperature should slowly rise throughout this week. But it's this split, this boundary, which is causing all that rain and hopefully some dry conditions further southwards. Now, if you look at the max temperatures, you can see during this afternoon, touching 18 degrees or so in a few spots. Still quite chilly, though, in most areas as we do progress into the final few days of September. Pretty cool overnight, mid to high single digits for most, and then into Monday afternoon, could nudge 18 or 19 again, looking reasonably dry, but starting to see the cloud and rain returning to parts of northern or western parts, and that will start to bring those temperatures back down. Into Tuesday, again, a little bit of a chilly morning, but with thicker clouds, shouldn't be too bad. And then by the afternoon, look at that, quite widely high teens. And this is as that southwesterly wind starts to push in and starts to bring those slightly warmer air masses. But you can see into the early portion of October, the first day of October, it's not too bad in the south and the east, 20 degrees perhaps, which is really quite pleasant there for the first day of the middle month of autumn. But cooler in the north and the west with that rain pushing in. And then you can really see the split here into Thursday, where we could even reach 21 degrees across parts of the Midlands, but only 11 or 12 in the north, with that rain really pushing in. And the similar conditions will be expected there into Friday. As I said, upper air temperatures looking pretty mild indeed by the end of the week with that far-fetched southwesterly flow. So yeah, temperatures not going to be too much of a problem, at least this week. It's just going to be, where does the cloud and rain set up? Longer range though, we could have to contend with cooler temperatures if we see the jet stream subtly shifting southwards, allowing more of a west to northwesterly wind pushing in. Now you can see at the moment high pressure remains in control for southern areas into the middle portion of the week, and then low pressure starts to push in off the Atlantic there later on in the week, and it looks really unsettled, maybe even stormy right in those western coastal areas there through the end of the week. This is where we see the battle. High pressure to our south, low pressure to the north, up towards Greenland and Iceland. Not a pretty typical pattern, to be honest, for autumn. Normally, we'd expect eventually the tropospheric polar vortex, the big blobs of blue up there towards the Arctic, to win out and expand as they do during the autumn. But there is uncertainty. It looks like it could win out for a time here as we head into the following week with low pressure really pushing in. But longer term, high pressure eventually returns and it does go drier. So yes, GFS has the jet stream shifting southwards, has it turning incredibly unsettled for a few days for all, but by the end of the run, the high pressure pushes back in, the jet stream gets shoved way to our north. Look at that going up between Iceland and Greenland there, and we are under this little area of higher pressure, where yes, it might be a bit chilly with a northeasterly flow, but generally not too bad. You can see if we go back a few days, you can see if we put on the jet stream, it's diving southwards, and if that does occur, then we could go very unsettled and cooler as well. That's a more important feature. Definitely could push some quite chilly air our way. You can see these blues streaming in. Again, nothing cold enough to produce anything remotely close to wintry conditions, but definitely would make it feel much, much colder. Now, if you look at the GM, that's really on board with the jet stream pushing southwards. You can see we do see the split southeast northwest throughout this week, and then eventually towards next weekend, low pressure really pushes in off the Atlantic, and it does look incredibly unsettled. And again, towards day 10, there's a little bit of blocking towards Greenland. Again, we'd have a bit of intrigue in this if this were a winter month, as it could allow even colder air to head our way. But at this point, it is just the jet stream getting shoved southwards to the south of the UK here, heading into parts of France, clipping southwest England. And that means we're into cooler air and unsettled conditions. You can see from the temperature deviation, lots of slight blues moving around. So nothing ridiculously cold, but chilly nonetheless. And there's definitely been a bit of a shift towards this more southerly tracking jet stream there. As said, biggest difference would be there would be rain and showers for all, not just the north and the west, and temperatures would be cooler as well. Now, if you look at the ECM WF to finish off, again, very similar over the coming days with the northwest-southeast split. Low pressure pushing in over next weekend, and again, trying to shove the jet stream southwards, and it does for a short period of time head kind of through parts of the Midlands, but eventually towards the end of this run, similar to the GFS, the high pressure wins out in the tropospheric polar vortex, and the jet stream gets pushed back towards Greenland. You can see it with the upper air winds, again going well to our north, up towards Iceland, up towards Svalbard there, so a very northerly tracking jet. So we'll have to wait and see what happens, but definitely looks like the jet stream is going to be a bit all over the place over the next week or two. Could see it tracking very far southwards for a time, cool and unsettled, and then pushing northwards maybe longer term into the middle portion of October, which could turn it dry and hopefully a bit warmer as well. So we'll keep a very close eye on that. Now, if you look at the ensembles, you can definitely see that they're probably more on side of the southerly tracking jet stream here, as we've not got as many warmer runs anymore, and that would be pretty symbolic of more the southerly tracking jet, allowing slightly colder air masses to get involved. You see, during this week, the upper air temperatures return close to average by kind of Thursday, Friday. We'll go a little bit above average for a time, but generally hover around average for the foreseeable future, maybe slightly chillier there later on. Precipitation really picks up from next weekend. That's when we're expecting low pressure to move southwards and eastwards, whereas you can see the next kind of 4 or 5 days, not much at all. Even though we are very close to heavy rain, it doesn't look like London or southern areas are going to see much at all. But it really could pick up there around the 4th, 5th. We could see quite an unsettled spell there. Sea level pressure, you can see really dropping longer term, again symbolic of that more southerly tracking jet. So yeah, big battleground this week, but it does look like low pressure will win out eventually, and then it goes very unsettled. 2 meter temperatures dropping quite a bit next week. Again, we got that southwesterly wind at the moment, but if that jet stream shifts outwards, which looks likely now, would be cooler as expected. And then if we finish by looking at the latest ECM WF ensembles, again, bit of a rise in the upper air temperatures during this week, but then you can see the precipitation returns next weekend. Upper air temperatures do drop closer to average, and it does look pretty unsettled and pretty chilly there as we do progress towards early mid to middle portion of October. So yeah, definitely some real intrigue there, but we could be looking at a pretty typical autumnal pattern into early to middle of October, with not only lots of rain, maybe stronger winds for northern areas, but becoming more widespread progressively into October. And of course, cooler temperatures returning as well. Because as I said, we're going to see maybe even 19 or 20 degrees this week. Don't suspect we'll see that if the sort of longer term prospects here do come to fruition. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed this week. If you are in the south and east, it does look like we're going to escape the worst conditions. But if you are in the north and west, unfortunately, it is looking like a bit of a washout. Do keep an eye on those weather warnings. I suspect there could be some further warnings issued as we do see lots of rain in sort of same areas through this week. So we'll keep a very close eye on that. So as I said, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.